Oompa Loompas height. Sorry for anyone who needs it that small. Oh, sorry.
Probably worked great for me, Charles.
So thank you guys all for being here tonight. I am very excited to be up here getting to introduce Nat and Nano, two USU former students. A USU love story. I have to remember all the jobs that I have, and I'm going to forget like 3 of them, and I only have like 3 of them. So Star's going to help as I forget things. She gave me the idea to look up here to remind me what has to happen. This one means that there's a broadside for sale, and Teresa was going to talk about that. Teresa, you going to talk about that?
Yeah, go talk about the broadside.
Go talk about it?
Yeah, you got a lot to say about these things, so.
Tell what they can do to get on.
Yeah, they're on sale for $2.
Are
They're
they
in the back.
$2?
Yeah.
Sure. Apparently, she's going to give you more information than that.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
These are on sale for $2.
Come on, something new. I've already given that.
No, to be featured on a Helicon West broadside, your first task is to sign up on the readers list, because if you read a poem, only poetry, right?
No, everything.
Anything. If you read anything at Helicon West and it's wonderful, then we might contact you to feature you on a broadside, and they cost $2.
I've heard they're $2.
Yeah.
And yeah, wouldn't you want to be on one of these? Yes, you would. Yes. Okay, and so thing number 2 is that Adam Fagan is running Logan Writers Group workshops. The next one is on March 11th through April 15th, so check that out if you would like to do some work with Adam. He's a great guy. Other things that are reminding me to say things. The Helicon West Anthology is for sale, so please grab a copy of that and then pay for it. It's not $2. $10? $12?
Yeah, oh, 15.
15.
15
Worth
songs. You get Charles and other people.
Well, not really me, but something I wrote a long time ago. I'll read it to you once. Aw? Okay.
That's nice. Do you come to our house and read?
No, it would probably be here, actually.
I gotta ask.
And next is Nate, who has something wonderful to tell you about something that he and some other people here put together that's unbelievably amazing. So, Nate.
Hi. So, unbelievably amazing, wonderful, a couple of really stellar adjectives to use. We started a literary magazine for Logan. It's a literary zine, and it's open for everyone from professors and grad students and students to community members. And the idea is just to showcase and anthologize the incredible talent that the town has. Because in the time I spent in Logan, I didn't realize how much of a booming kind of beatnik town it is, but it totally is. So we're capturing it. And we've got like funding, which is great, and enough for like hopefully the next 5 editions. So the only thing we're going to need is content for that. So to have an Uncle Sam moment, I want you to sing us. And also at the next Helicon West reading, I'm slotted to read, and we'll be releasing these to the public, and you can buy them for like $5. So that's the project. One more thing also, Ann Schill designed it in 2 days, and it looks, forgive my French, fucking phenomenal.
All right. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. So, that's it? I ask hesitantly, Star?
I think that's good.
Okay. All right. Well, then that means that I get now
Thank
to...
the library.
Oh, yeah, thank you. See, I knew there was something. We, of course, want to thank the library. Kat and Joseph are instrumental in making sure that we have a place to hold Helicon West twice every month. And as you all know, we couldn't be here unless they said it was okay, so that's a big thing.
Also, big thanks to Sugar House Review for helping us do this. Sorry, I totally forgot.
Yeah,
These guys are awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so, what else, Sar?
That's it. I promise.
You promise.
Oh, it's
Oh.
uncensored.
What's that?
Uncensored.
Oh yeah, it's uncensored. So fuck anybody who tries to speaking of which, there's a sign up back there. If you haven't checked that out, there's I think just a couple more slots. You can put yourself onto that alternate slot if you need to, but we are going to be done by 8:45 because we have to clean up and be out of the library by 9. But don't let that stop you from signing up. I'll just stop you later, if necessary. Okay, so I'm so happy to have Nat and Nano here. I'm going to introduce them somewhat lamely by reading the things that they've already said that we should say about them, and then I'm going to make some inappropriate remarks. So we're going to have Natalie read first. Natalie Young is the founding editor for the poetry magazine Sugar House Review, which is now celebrating its 10-year anniversary. Not only that, they are selling an issue that celebrates the 10-year anniversary back there. They are also selling back there the press's first non-serialized publication.
Yeah,
Chapbook. Book of poems.
by Dave Lee, Utah's first poet laureate.
Utah's first poet laureate.
Well done, Charles.
Well done, Charles. By day, Natalie works as an art director for an ad agency based in Salt Lake City. Her poems have been published in Los Angeles Times, Green Mountain Review, the Midwest Quarterly, Rattle, South Dakota Review, Drunken Boat, Terrain.org, and many others. Natalie's left-handed. I know you guys are worried. She's half Puerto Rican and a fan of Carol Burnett and broccoli. Have you had broccoli while watching Carol Burnett? Just curious. I think I have, actually. Half the people in here have no idea who Carol Burnett is. If you're interested in checking out some of Natalie's work, she's got a website, natalieyoungarts.com. Correct? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Nano now as well, just to make that easier for later, and we'll work around that. So Nano Taggart's, he says strophes in here, but I'm not saying that word.
All right.
His poems
Sure.
can be spotted in journals like Diagram, Verse Daily, Terrain.org, and the American Journal of Poetry. He's a co-founder of the Poetry Rag Sugar House Review and co-recipient of a grant from the Utah Division of Arts and Museums. Carl Phillips once called him handsome.
That's true.
Do you want to like just like show them your face now?
I'll be up there.
But not for a while. Don't forget I said that. They'll be like, what, Carl Phillips? The inappropriate remarks, the things that didn't say. I just love these two guys. They're so awesome. They're so fun. And the fact that they met at USU is always great. And, I was not fortunate enough to have Natalie as a student in any of my classes, but I had Nano in a couple of my classes. This was a long freaking time ago. Like, half you people were still like in grade school when this happened. And so like a squeaky little me coming out of grad school had a bunch of students like him, and it was just great, coming here and knowing that there were kids who were excited and interested and open-minded and driven to do good things in the world. It really meant a lot to me to come here and find students like that. And then these guys graduated, and they're so devoted to the arts and to poetry that they founded a magazine on their own. Like, who does that, right? Yeah. I mean, okay, yeah, this room might be full of several people who fine. All right, fine. We're a very small subset of the larger population. All the people who have started poetry magazines and presses in the entire valley are now in this room right now, probably. But these two guys, along with friends, put together this magazine, and it has done such an amazing job. I think within your first, issue that was up for a push cart, was that what it was?
Yeah.
And that's saying something, people. Like, that's a big thing. They just stepped into it, and they were knocking it out of the park right from the beginning. And that magazine has become a huge part, I think, of the Utah literary landscape. And, you know, these are kids who didn't have to do that. You know, they're not in a school, no one was making them do that. It was because it was important to them to create that space for people to express themselves. And that's an amazing thing. So please welcome these two wonderful people. Put your hands together for Natalie Young, and when it's his turn, Nano Taggart. Thank you.
Thanks, Charles. That's gonna be the perfect height for me.
I thought that was just pretty perfect.
Yeah. Thank you for the lovely introduction. I would say possibly we made a magazine and we didn't have to, and we shouldn't have. But here we are, 10 years later, and I'm glad we did it, and also sometimes wish we hadn't. So this is our 10-year anniversary issue, and normally we are half this size, but we decided to go full size for 10 years, and I'm going to read for my first poem that I'm going to read. I'm going to read a poem out of the anniversary issue. I'm just going to show you guys that we actually have a gatefold in this one. So this is the poem from the gatefold. And it is by Mark Leahy, The New Lake. It is not natural, it is essential. It is essentially a ditch, from stormwater runoff to prevent flooding, ringed with willows to combat erosion. Stocked with a diversity of fish to eat the feces of other animals, the arriving snakehead bird cannot believe its luck at first. I chase it on my lunch break, its knife beak bound in discarded fishing line, tripping over its wide feet, but faster than me. I ask a stranger from the hospital across the street for help, but he doesn't understand. Shakes his bandaged head as it hobbles, starving, toward what it believes to be the safety of the water. Tomorrow I will come back and watch a woman teach the wood stork how to beg for scraps. And I will watch a heron swallow a duckling whole, like spun sugar plucked from the reeds. And the snakehead bird will sleep between the dead, wet leaves. And I will have been of no particular use to any of them. So it's nice to be reading with Nano. We don't usually get to read together, although this is not our first Valentine's together reading. I think we are kind of a popular ticket for Valentine's Day because not many poets who live together last. So I'm going to read a few, just a couple of old poems that are particularly lovey, or like they're love letters kind of, and then I'm going to read from a manuscript that I've been working on for a very long time, but the whole thing to me is kind of a weird love letter. So February can't be stopped. Refuse the sugar cookie. It blushes, besieged with crimson sprinkles, as though a Barbie might use it for a pillow, a table, a giant pack of birth control pills. That lob of icing holds too much in its flushed skin. Yes, I dressed the dog in a deep pink sweater vest. I'm not proud of it, but she is. The knitted lines, the V-neck, a hot contrast to her short cream fur, not to mention how nicely it photographs with the leftover Christmas garland. Here, take this envelope, a swatch of fake velvet glued to the outer fold. Take it, rub your thumb against it. Take it and know that despite its hues of Pepto-Bismol, I adore you. Oh, our shameless hearts. Everything is red, pink, rubies, darker pink, brighter red. And here is a love letter of sorts. Dear Bill Murray. Once I had a friend with the last name Murray. He didn't look like you, but he was sort of funny and moody. He likened his love life to fruit salad. That was kind of the end, not wanting to be a cherry, a pear, or whipped cream. Bill Murray, The Life Aquatic's my favorite movie. Even though people squint in confusion, all that blue. I pretend to be the seahorse, Angelica Houston, or the leopard shark, depending. I have a photo on my memo board. I'm sure you look older now. Bill Murray, there's no way I'm your biggest fan. You and your golf cart antics, I might kiss you. If there was only that moment, and then nothing. What else, Bill Murray? It smells like bug repellent in here. Strange, but it holds comfort to know something in the middle of all these strangers. Also, a smidge of cranberry wafting from my spill, which is not comfort, just sticky. I bet you're a lot like my dad, Bill Murray. Bill Murray, I wouldn't care to meet you. Instead, I'll still like you. Instead, I'll pretend you're really the man who kisses Scarlett Johansson and whispers something to make everything as good as it can be. So, this manuscript sounds crazier than it is, but I'm just going to explain it in general so that these individual poems make sense. And so Star Said Tonight was also a women's event. So all of these, I'm going to read a lot of poems from a female voice. And the three main characters in this manuscript are a female woman who is a human, and then there's an alien, and there's a monster who lives in the Great Salt Lake. And I'm not reading any of the poems about the monster, but the alien and the woman are involved in a romantic relationship. So we have the woman and we have romance for Valentine's Day. So I'm going to read this first poem, and Cache Valley shows up in it, which is why I'm going to read it. And it also explains sort of the beginning of the relationship. Alien and she visit the north. And I guess I should say that this whole thing is based in Utah. So it's sort of like this love letter to Utah in a weird way too, and an anti-love letter to the culture of Utah. Because everything in Utah is kind of alien. Alien and she visit the north. This and an egg timer brought them together. The highly sensitive and hard-boiled can be magnetic late in a long day, dressed in cologne, fluorescence, an alien favorite. Something to do with rod to cone distribution, a balancing act in our planet's atmosphere. Things carry and fall in the small northern valley of cheese. The alien and she go fishing in the reservoir. Dangle lines without color. She reels it in, looks it in the eye, and releases. Each one a little too familiar. He keeps them all, slurps them down raw, doesn't bother to explain the taste. Small chunks of Velveeta litter the tackle box. She asks if he wonders. He says he doesn't need to, says his kind can't go near the Great Salt Lake. Forbidden by unwritten rule to locate the monster of a landlocked sea. Sunk, spurred, she must see the one and only in her own backyard. So part of this is just that she's a broken human in a way, but she also is just trying to figure things out like we all are. And a lot of it's about, she has a loss of faith, the faith that is the majority here in Utah. So this is also a lot about that. She's diagnosing breaking down the day. Forget sequence. Think of today's clouds acting distant, like a geisha's white foundation, thin, even, trained for years in the art before becoming official. Officially looking down at armadillos, armor-plated creatures on the road, linked to leprosy, and then instantly to Jesus and curing. Instant miracles. His followers following all those years and seconds ago, before the metaphors got complicated. Sheep, always faithful, but never brave. Run alongside and while also running away to safety. The same kind of safe human bodies try to build with fruit and spices. Orange, the intense color of turmeric works through blood, eases what's inflamed, protection in powder, and a full moon overhead, full of that honest round face. And honestly, she's never been able to see the man up there. Features visible with a squint and far reach of what she does see. Gray spots, shadow, and stillness. Still, she cannot tell where the clouds end and the haze begins. So hopefully, this next poem is kind of funny, and also a little sad. Sacrament meeting started the 3 hours of church on Sunday. A friend taught her how to pass the time, flip through the hymn book and add in the bathtub after any song title. So I'm just gonna do this because there's a lot of song titles throughout it, if there's a song title. How great thou art in the bathtub. Now let us rejoice in the bathtub. Did you think to pray in the bathtub? Know this, that every soul is free in the bathtub. An hour of speeches broken up by hymns, prayers, and eating Christ's blood and body, blessed white wonder bread, and a doll's cup of water for each worthy member. She no longer sits through church meetings or questions her questioning, though often hums those hymns around the house, slips wholly ingrained choruses into a tub of hot water. Ears immersed, she can hear the sounds of her own choir, the heart's ba-dum, 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 too fast for its own good. Rejoice, a glorious sound is heard in the bathtub. Rustling, empty stomach, gurgle escalates to a shout. Wishes of breath tunnel in and out, hard enough to simply sit still. Then left to a porcelain amphitheater, where can I turn for peace? In the bathtub, thuds whirl. Come along, with all the power of heart and tongue. Maintenance of this submerged body, too tough, too much. Master, the tempest is raging. Not enough, still, small whisper. Ye simple souls who stray, let us all press on. So, the alien's coming back, and he just happens to be really obsessed with water, and he's doing water experiments all of the time. So, this particular poem, he is inspired by a photograph series by Rosalind Fisher, where she took tears and put them under the microscope and did photographs of them, and depending on what kind of tear it was, it had a totally different structure. So like if it was an onion tear or a sorrow tear or a happy tear, they all looked different. The alien takes the human's tears, places them under a microscope to reveal primal language, dehydrated and inspected, the salt formation, a suspect of circumstance. Grief crystallizes in empty streets, the dismantled brick walls of a looted city. Onions plant a fern quilt in a snowflake sheet. Geometry's hard edges and blocks burst from drips of laughter. Ice, metal, work, and coral collide to build a blueprint encompassed by crowds dispersing in the uncertainty of change. And with a blink, a slide of the lid waters a cutaway of earth, roots reaching beyond human experience like a drop of the ocean. So after a while, she's really sick of these experiments, and she talks to the alien about it. Exhausted by more than just tears and empty ice cube trays, the human addresses the alien's water experiments. Did you know the ocean's pH is nearly identical to human blood? Which feels true, though it's probably a myth. What does every piece of life come down to? 2 hydrogen atoms clinging to an oxygen. That's a lot of pressure for 3 molecules. Fascination is understandable, even obsession. And yet, no matter the small hinge this all rests on, you can't alter chemistry, the way water never changes its constant change. So like, what is more inevitable to have problems than two poets living in a house, an alien and a human living in a house? So we run into some turbulence. And I guess I should also say the aliens don't have a gender. They just sort of pick if they want to be a male or a female when they get here. So the alien chose he, but now wants to be a she. He likes lace. The way skin shows through, no matter the color, a kind of unnatural camo. The permanent she, the human she, is inconsolable. The alien asks questions to puzzle piece the grief. Her face is a storm cloud, and she can't formulate. It's no secret. No matter the pronoun, he is neither a he nor a she. Her mind on spin cycle. I wanted androgyny, male androgyny. This house doesn't need another woman. The alien doesn't understand her despair. It's only a costume swap, a different role to play. Normally, tears fascinate, but there are so many her lids start to swell. She's always been attracted to the aliens, tall and lean and open. This one became more than a fling when he showed up in a suit and tie to her father's funeral. After hours in separate rooms and thought, a try at explanation. You know, I was content being a he until I lived with your she. I understand your reasons. Sometimes I wish I was a man. Sometimes neither is enough. But what about you and me? And what about me? So I feel like I probably should just only read one more poem because I have no idea how long I've been reading. So I'm going to read this poem. It's called She Writes Notes to the Pagoda Tree. Ties them to the branches one by one. Each autumn, your petite leaves surprise with your smart yellow, a reminder of banana skins, not one shade different. 2. I apologize for the way the dog gouged your thick bark, wanted to climb and grab the neighbor's cat from your arms. I apologize for stapling chicken wire around your trunk. It was meant to stop the clawing. Now I don't know which was worse. 3. You are not the maple, a vast and barrel-chested guard, a warning. He sloughs his enormous trunk in large hunks. The wind grunts, lunging through his limbs. You are a cousin to the pea, and your leaves aren't nearly as small as they seem. 4. When I move from this mountain valley of hard earth with plenty of snow but little water, you will be missed. You who shouldn't be able to grow here. The arborist says you're a thirsty breed. 5. The ground is burning and you must be cold. This afternoon you released a full yellow blanket from your branches, not delicate like a baby, wide and complete. 6. How do you gather the courage to let it all go in a single day? Thank you.
I always agree to let her go first, and I always regret it. To borrow a trick from a friend of mine, Jerry Van Norland, one of our founders with Sugar, now in Emeriti. I'm picturing all of you naked, especially you, Mitch. It's like Newt Gingrich holding an apple, ladies and gentlemen. That poem, the church hymn poem, that poem is so good. Oh. I'm going to start as well with a poem from Sugar House Review. It's by a really fantastic poet. One of my favorite poets, actually, that's alive right now, named Weston Cutter. If you're not familiar with his work, check it out. He actually, after we became familiar with his work, he started to volunteer for us. So he's a reader. So one of my favorite living poets helps us choose what poems to publish. And that's kind of cool. And Star, oh, Thank you so much. You get sort of in the pattern of serving other writers, other poets, right? And it's amazing, it's rewarding. And dude, Nate, you're in for an adventure. Kudos, dude. But it gets harder and harder to make your own creativity a priority, especially as a project grows. So this means so much. Thank you. Weston Cutter, Hey Jealousy. Remember that song, 1994? Yeah. Now I'm the white sideburn guy moving slow at the show. Sort who knows where he's going and laughs at whatever. I dance bad with my wife and can hardly remember those long practiced scowls. No longer defined by taking as few steps as necessary so long as each of them stayed cool. Done hating myself for spacing the lyrics to each B-side and no outrage as the worlds turn past B-sides by and large. This flipless present, what we all become while only half noticing. When I was your age, I say to myself, brushing my teeth a room away from the dreaming daughters, I waited for certain songs on the radio the way ancients did for rain. Life feels largely to be a test, whether you can let everyone want as they wish, even though you're sure your way's right. And each time you sigh and say, you do you, is another failed pop quiz. An incomplete list of things I used to wish to be. Dan, Steve, Ben, Jake, Bob, Tree, River, Raw. Now I'm this so glad guy, wife tapping just out of beat against my back as the band plays songs in the key of my youth. And finally, none of this is about meaning, past belief. The tight jean balding lead singer's job is to remember each word. Ours is to cling to how it felt hearing them the first time. All we swore we'd hold till our own tunes are subsumed by the static of the big radio as it dials in a new station, new song, new lucky fool, reaching for the same old stars. Weston Cutter, ladies and gentlemen. So one time I took the St. George shuttle from Cedar City to Salt Lake to be on a grant panel. And this really interesting guy struck up a conversation with me. This is about that. It's called I-15, Introverts and Strangers on the Long Range Shuttle. And it's got an epigraph by Kate Greenstreet. A story has to leave out nearly everything or nobody can follow it. Sandstone cliffs frame a cold day in March. On the other side of glass, I press both hands against. He begins, think about how much time these mountains. Christ, if you lived here all your life, you're missing it. Part of this now, struck by a response. I leave my safe silence for, we studied it in school, glaciers, fault lines, geologic time, but they may leave that last bit out now. It's going to be a long day, I don't say it, but think it. Nothing changes for this lack of offering. Still, his fingers uncoil toward me. Revelry, they can't teach revelry. The landscape shifts from sedentary red to igneous black. They can and they do, just not for these mountains. 2 warm days preceded this one. Both hands balled now under a folded jacket. My first memory has been solicited. He's getting to something. I consent with, I'm standing in Lake Mojave, to my knees. Couldn't have been more than 3. I don't request his or note the photo of this moment. How doubt clouds recollection. The sun in my eyes, my mother's outstretched hand. We both suspect people gather to water or to landmarks a safe distance from water. 200 miles closer to a shared destination, I've reached an accord with a stranger. It is never as simple as, this sustains us. We should stay right here. And a couple years ago, an artist named Andrew Marvick and I got a grant to do a little chapbook and an exhibit. I have some of these back there if you're interested. He's a fantastic artist. We did an exhibit and some kind of educational programs for Iron County kids. They're very much ekphrastic in that they're about the art, but it's more of a conversation. I kind of wrote in response to him, he painted in response to me, and then I kind of got the last word. I'm going to read a few of these. I steal some lines from John Fox from the band Ultravox. Anybody know Ultravox in this room? Charles? No? Oh, man. Good introduction, though. I mean,
Yeah, I was there with you, right?
Yeah.
90%. Yeah.
This is called Mojave Dirge. I learned impermanence from large signs floating down the Vegas Strip with palm tree fronds and litter. The topless girls of Glitter Gulch, $1 draft beer, prime rib breakfast buffet, $3.99. Yucca Mountain almost shaded a next world's leaking catastrophe. Inert neon livens an archive that charges admission. Take a guided tour of the neon boneyard. I found an archive in my mother's cedar chest, a photo of my whole new self in my father's right hand. Shadows of coming past foretell an empty oasis belonging to no one. I drank to excess under neon flamingos buried at the altar of false place. False Paris, fake Italy, a stucco castle pull away the night. Shield tourists from Mount Charleston and the Great Basins divide. Now my archive's inheritor, absolution, turns toward listening, and the world's dark centers are stumbled upon. Knowing is a map to the blood engine, a map to the sacred start. Lake Mead's bathtub rings foreshadow pleas to pipe Lake Superior for 1,700 miles to the American Southwest. I'm drinking to my story and the feigned wonderland that can't stay long. Straight lines escape me. Calling this emptiness, too loaded. Calling it home, a lie. This will be the greatest ghost town the world has ever seen. Hey, here's a love poem of sorts. It's called Our Love and Some Objects. We're Americans, people. The wilting kerosene light spills a patina on your curled form. I dream of lightning, and there is never enough light in the largest rooms. Strung from urgency to make things the way we want them, what reason is there to be like we are? I dream of lightning flashes, burning. We take for granted the dark forms, shape-shifting, rituals as we fold into sleep. I dream of lightning flashes that burn you. I dream of lightning flashes that burn your shadow onto passing freight cars. You are always in motion. It's a very Utah poem, Urban Design, the City of Zion Platte. We've all heard the story of Brigham Young wanting every street to be wide enough for 2 horses and buggies to be able to make a U-turn, right? Believe along with me that everything happens in straight lines, that our histories can't catch up to us, that we'll get ahead of this and catch ourselves, our breath. We know the name of Zion and the next intersection and the next. I need you to know that all new cities are built atop the ruins of something. Sometimes settlers try and keep failing. This was supposed to be the place. Sometimes it won't rain for months, but this near-perfect grid can't lead me back to you. The poems get progressively weirder. I apologize. This one's called synesthesia, and that is a term that means sensory confusion. It's kind of directly in response to one of Andy's paintings. It's also in response to the Charlottesville rally that we all know and couldn't believe was happening. Synesthesia. We have the evidence to know that we guessed correctly. There's a city. There's usually a city. and it's what we walk away from. Bolts and beams and edges, sharpened by decay, frame paths to be repeated. We trace the outline of some slow dream, long enough to know our chances. The unnamed woman perched as a pillar of salt is an assemblage of steel. Black lines flank bodies, all revolving around a deafening light, which presents a way back to somewhere, a welcome torch in the jigsaw forest. It's not so much turning back to see what's left behind. It's when we open our mouths that locks us to place. We move through heaps of hands and shoulders, pieces of faces, as sunburst fractures back an almost third dimension steeped on the disk of Newton's color wheel. We feel midnight approach, and with it, not so distant pasts that repeat in unison chants of blood and soil, that grow only louder, and for better or worse, we tend, it seems, to find each other. The air is wet with so much noise. This is probably the closest I've gotten to writing a love poem that I like. It's called Waylaid. May is playing tricks again. Winter rears like records skip in deep grays that break suggestions of spring. Each year does this, but we hold fast our rancor. Each year we are going to leave, have to leave, must, and it's true. As we watch another year of tulips bloom, then, battered by snow, slump into slush. I cough complaint and scrape ice, infer nothing from the honk of unseen Canada geese overhead. Again, returned too soon. Summer is coming with its snowmelt floods for July, then its months of barely a drop of rain. I clutch my defeat with weak-kneed ardor. You hold my collapse at the door. And this one is called But You Could Laugh at Our Hopelessness. It's kind of directly in response to this painting that even if you don't want to buy the book, you're welcome to just come get it dirty, handle it back there in the corner. Get it dirty. But you could laugh at our hopelessness. A hard division splits two panes to the right center. Graffiti climbs from its concrete and inhabits us at the underpass. Clouds consume our excesses, bear the grease of machines long since retired. We are cloistered in the perfect place to make things that matter to almost no one. Taught to crouch under our desks when the sirens sounded and not much else. The open spaces slow us down, interrupt our languages with wind and dust. We court fear like a darker world might bolster this by comparison. The gold-trimmed failure is a crown, and those around us care too much to even let us down easy. It's not a metaphor that Cato's daughter swallowed fire. Brows furrow at the edge of questions and daylight's running down. A lone foxglove spills pink against the backdrop of a tincture blue sky dulled by the threat of storm. More and more we veer towards silence in the hours that are actually ours. And just one more poem. Thank you again, Star. Thank you, library. Such a pleasure. Thank you for being here. You could be watching like the Real Housewives of Wichita or something. This is called We Dream and Believe the Rest to Be True. I don't know how long since you've gone, but I've started to notice this city is crumbling. A patchwork, pieced from something else. A long list of all else entirely. I used to think I heard your voice seep from the cracks in the aqueduct, from the spaces of trenched earth that will someday sit below our museum. I collect things. I know if you heard my voice, it would have steadied you. I'm always collecting things. You can always find me here. Thank you.
Just like Raby West.
It didn't like crawl out of my ass during the middle of the reading.
No, it wasn't itching towards your face right at the end.
Oh, did you get the bug off him?
Yeah.
No, come
Somebody
on.
should have yelled at me, dude, you got a bug!
It wasn't the best part of the reading. It was a fun part of the reading.
Thanks, Charles.
Star says we need to have a little question and answer period. So do you
Oh,
two
cool.
want to return up here and together share the mic?
Sure.
Any more bugs?
No, we're good.
I didn't notice anything.
Thank you.
I was back there stealing the words. My question is, tell us a little bit about how it all started with Sugar House, because, you know, Nate's here and he's done this amazing thing, and we want to know how it was for you. What happened? How did it start?
So, like Charles mentioned, there is the two of us and then two of our friends who also went to Utah State. We met one of them, Jerry Van Ebron, in Brock's class, and then we had Star's class together too, and then we were in a writing group together for a long time in Salt Lake. And then John Kippen happened to also be in that writing group, and he went to Utah State, but we didn't know him when he was here. So we were over at John's house one day, and we were just talking about poetry and sipping tea. And, a couple of us had just finished our master's degrees, and we're like, what should we do next? Like, what's next? You know, we're just so tired. We should do something else. But we did start saying, like, you know, doing a poetry journal sounds fun. And I think, you know, at the time, Utah did not have an independent poetry journal. And so we were saying, you know, somebody should do it, and why not? Why not us? And then John talked to Roberta Stearman, who, as a lot of you maybe know, she was married to Ken Brewer, who was poet laureate of Utah for a while, and he had passed away by this time, but he was he was one of our poetry heroes, all of us. And he talked to Roberta, who was the executor of his estate at the time, and just said, you know, are there unpublished poems, and this is what we're doing, and would you let us publish them? And she said yes, and we thought, okay, this is real, and if we can publish these poems, we've got to do a good job, and we've got to do it. So then it just went from there. Then we had no idea what we were doing, which is good, because we wouldn't have done it if we had known. And off we went.
Yeah.
And that was in 2009. And we probably, oh yeah, and it was pretty quick. I mean, we did it very quickly. We started talking about it in January, but by the time we were actually established as a business, it was maybe June when we had our bank account and our EIN number and whatever that you have to have. And then we published in September or October our first issue. So, and so we typically do 2 issues a year, a spring, summer, and a fall, winter. Both of our anniversary years, which was a 5-year and a 10-year, we've just done a double issue for those years. So 1 big issue for the year.
Yeah. We were really lucky. We had a lot of help. I don't think anything gets off the ground without help, right? Paul Muldoon, Jerome Rothenberg, Pimone Triplett, I think. We had a number of poets send us work as an act of faith when we did not yet have anything to show for ourselves. As we sort of exist longer, the need to solicit work lessens, because we get so many submissions now. But yeah, every time we feel like we're about to run out of gas, something incredible happens. So here we are, 10 years later.
Can y'all talk a little bit about who are your inspirations as poets? Like, I know you mentioned Weston Cutter, but I'm just kind of curious who drives each of you.
So I have a lot, because I think if any of you have read our magazine, it is pretty eclectic, and that is one of our goals, is to be eclectic. And I think in general, we all have tastes that are pretty eclectic. But Mae Swenson was one of my earliest inspirations and somebody that I go back to all the time. Weston Cutter is fantastic. Now that I'm put on the spot, this always happens. I always just go blank.
We saw a poet named Kate Greenstreet who I had an epigraph by read in Salt Lake a number of years ago, and it was the strangest, most wonderful experience, and I think for both of us, she's become a huge influence. As an undergraduate, I still do. Wallace Stevens, man. What an incredible poet. What a prick, but what an incredible poet. Yeah, there's so many. Carl Phillips. Dude, Carl Phillips, when it's all said and done, it's going to be like Shakespeare, John Donne, Carl Phillips, I swear. If you don't know Carl Phillips, check out Carl Phillips. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've had a lot of different poets who have inspired me, or at different points in the trajectory. Like Anne Sexton I was super into for a while, Tony Hoagland, what's the one? Billy Collins I really loved for a while.
Mark
and
Doty.
I still do. Mark Doty. But I think just, you know, like anything, as you evolve as a human, your tastes kind of change, and you've already, you know, you've been there, done that one thing, and you want something different.
Any other questions? No? Cool. Thank you.
All right, so we've got the open mic portion, and our first three readers tonight are Isaac Tim, Aaron Tim, and Diana Hardy. So come on up in order.
Yeah. Get away, you buggy. Get away. Boxilla roach. No. Run away. They're my friends. Except when they're dive bombing my head, then they're not my friends. All right. I'm Isaac Tim, and this is my poem, The Prosody of Fuck. In poetry, you should never leave fuck outside a framework. Your fucks should be placed in rows, a garden of fucks, if you will, to be harvested sparingly. You can't throw a fuck pell-mell into the wind, because an ill-aimed fuck shuts down any argument, leaves the God-fearing belligerent. Your poetry should flow, words over mossy stones, never be jagged with sharp consonants. Fuck can startle, break the warm bubble of nostalgia. Poetry should be like in grade school, when odes were to the unknown waterfowl and not fucking ducks. Twisted and cut in half by a gun blast, but a flock of lovely mallards just before their turn to bobbing water stains. Fuck makes any poem tattered and obscene. And one must never be fucking obscene. No matter what they do to you. If they call you a moocher, well, not you, but everyone like you, you mustn't take it personal. You have been vetted and found somewhat worthy. Unless you complain, then all bets are off. You should be taken out behind a barn and shot. You know, murdered in a folksy fucking way. You must never lose your fucking cool. When leaving the library in the teeth of an ice storm, you must keep your head down and your mouth shut. But if you do have to look up and ask the bearded man smoking a cigarette, sheltered behind a column, ask politely, "Sir, do you know the time?" Note how his beard reminds you of your favorite professor. Wonder if he's a grad student, and when he flips his cigarette butt into your face, don't startle. Or when he hisses, "If I were you, I'd eat a barrel." Watch how the butt spirals down to land on the seat of your wheelchair, burning a small hole. Don't scream, "Go fuck yourself," but stare dumbstruck, collecting snow as he walks away.
You can't have that poem, Nate. It's going to be in the next Sugar.
Oh, damn.
Thank you, guys.
You fucking bet.
Well, Thomas.
Okay, same thing as last time vis-a-vis the microphone. If you were here last time, you know what I'm talking about. If you weren't, it was nonsense. Pay me no mind. Okay. My name is Aaron. That guy's my husband. That was the best fucking reading of that poem. Can I just say? Woo! Yeah. Okay. I'm not just saying that because we're married. That was legit. Like he paused for the. Oh, it was awesome. Okay. All right. I'm gonna follow that with whatever this is. It's a poem I rewrote. So here you go. Yellow bathtub. It was slanted in the back. I loved pushing myself back and forth, building waves that sloshed over the faucet and then slammed into the back wall, raining water over me. I'd cover my face with my red washcloth, suck bath water until the rag stuck, suctioned to my face, and I struggled for breath. Would think, could I die this way? How lovely to just stop breathing. Outside on the trampoline, my brother would kneel on my chest, press his weight on me. He would stay this way until my vision blurred, and I would think, could I die this way? I did pass out once, only for a few seconds. It was enough to scare him from doing it again. I always pulled the rag from my face. My brother always released me. I never stopped breathing. Thank you.
Grandpa was a gambling man. Rises early, stokes the fire, tends to chickens, Grandma and me. The pool hall at noon to chew the fat, swallow the beer, shoot angle shots from ball to pocket, win his first round. On his front porch I sweat, with pounding head, racing pulse. Has he forgotten me? I close my eyes, play our trusting game, feel the peace, hold the love, and win my first round. Hear his steps, strong and sure. Cards laid out, my girl? Let's go, we're winners, by golly, 'cause it's a blackjack day for us. New to you and plenty hard, as you add with your head and bet with your heart. So I ante, raise the stakes, worry getting hit, then put on a poker face and dare to bluff. That's my Danny girl, take my money, knew you could and figured you would. A 4-year-old poker queen, I give my all, fearing nothing, risking all, beating the odds. A gambling girl, letting go, just letting go.
Okay, next we've got Katrina Funk, Adrian Thompson, and Bob Fuller.
Going to break the mold and read some prose. This is
flash nonfiction piece I wrote first about a year and a half ago, and something didn't quite sit right with it, and so I let it sit for a while, and I gave me tonight as my deadline to read it, to get it to somewhere I was happy with it. So this is what I wish my children didn't have to know. The gurgling hum of the Malibu's wake-setter's engine cuts off, and immediately my two preteen sons bound from their seats and leap from the side of the boat, landing almost simultaneously in the deep blue-green water. The spray of their splash shoots outward in an arc. The water droplets seem to hang suspended in the air for a fraction of a heartbeat, each little globe capturing the reflection of the boat, the vast expanse of the reservoir, and the steep craggy mountains looming up and around us before crashing back down. The droplets instantly vanish into the water, the air and mountains around no longer even a memory. The voices of my husband and father-in-law rise and fall in rhythm nearby, blending with the sound of my children playing. My 6-year-old daughter shuffles across the seat and settles in next to her grandmother. I close my eyes and tilt my head back as I absorb the heat from the vinyl and sun. I cling to the warmth, the sounds, and even the smell of the late summer lake, musty and old, wishing for a way to make this day last a little bit longer. No one says it, but we all know it. It's the last boating day of the season before fall rushes in, leaving only winter. I open my eyes and find my daughter lying on the beach, lying on the bench seat that lines the interior of the boat, her head resting on her grandmother's lap. They're silent, alone in their moment, even though the rest of us sit only a few feet away. My mother-in-law's fingers comb through the delicate strands of my daughter's light brown hair. It clings to her fingers before slipping down, the rays of sun catching each thin wisp of hair one by one as they fall. My daughter's arms, bronzed from a dozen days like this one, tighten around her grandmother's leg. They were matching smiles, tiny ones that barely curled the corners of their lips, offered unknowingly an instinctual reaction to the moment. The internal mechanisms of the VCR clicked and began to whir. I waited in front of the black TV screen and tried to ignore the hospital bed against the wall and the missing shelves and drawers of my grandmother's things. Even though I'd spent countless days of my childhood in this house, the makeshift medical room was like a stranger to my teenage eyes. I tapped my leg as I waited for the Swiss mountains to appear on the screen and Julie Andrews' voice to fill the muggy silence. A brush of fabric pulled my attention to the corner where my grandpa sat in an overstuffed orange recliner, a chair his sunken body no longer filled. His body hunched over as if he struggled to support his torso. He wasn't looking at me, his fingers knobby and warm from a lifetime on a farm, filled with a loose thread on his lap blanket. I turned to the screen, clamping down on my jaw until my jaw ached, clapping down on my teeth until my jaw ached. Even though he looked almost unrecognizable, I could still see that grandpa from my childhood who weeded the flower beds as I danced in the soft grass nearby. The grandpa who stood behind me and clapped out the beat as my little uncoordinated fingers stumbled over piano keys. The grandpa who let me watch, the scent of sawdust wafting like warm homemade bread as he took a quarter-inch sheet of wood and fed it to his jigsaw, twisting and turning in 100 unpredictable ways, little fragments falling bit by bit until all that remained was a pile of oddly shaped pieces, a unique puzzle just for me. Shuffling from my grandpa's corner jerked my attention back to him. His feet shifted as if he were preparing to get up, his hands bunching into knots in his lap. His eyes met mine. The time between my childhood and now contained only a few years, but I could not see myself reflected in those eyes. His face shifted with confusion, morphing to frustration, agitation, no recognition, no mutual memories, no me. I dropped my gaze. If I didn't look, I wouldn't have to see them probing me as he tried to place me somewhere in his fractured Alzheimer's memories, a place I no longer existed. The boat rocks as my two sons jump off the back deck, twisting and rolling in the air before they hit the water. Their laughter rises as they reemerge and compare their antics. The lake catches their laughter and pulls it along in gentle ripples as if savoring it, spreading it out as if in that way it could find a way to hold on to it forever. My mother-in-law and daughter sit unmoved, still oblivious to the world around them as a wisp of a cloud slips in between us and the sun. My mother-in-law's smile slips, and a thin crease splits her brow. Is it confusion, a slippage of memory, the where and why of what she is doing gone? Only moments like this have become more and more often the past few years, and even more noticeable since her recent diagnosis of early onset Alzheimer's. The sun reemerges as my husband cannonballs off the front of the boat, sending a wave of water onto everyone and everything within a 20-foot range. My daughter jumps up, her laughter joining the others as she reaches for her dad. The look vanishes from my mother-in-law's face, and her smile returns as she leaves and scolds her grown son. I lean my head back, close my eyes, and take in every last particle of the fading summer sun.
Hello, everyone. Adrian here, and going to read a couple poems today. But first, I want to say congratulations, everyone. Tomorrow is the midpoint of February. We're almost there, and after that, we'll be back to balmy 40-degree weather, and where it will be warm again. So we made it. Yes, no, I'm not the biggest fan of February. In fact, I intentionally mispronounce its name just to make it angry. So far, it's working. But one thing, but it's good to get outside in the winter anyway, to go fishing, even if you don't catch anything. So this is a poem about, it's called Just Before Ending My Evening of Fishing. A tiny bat flew under the bridge from where they roost in the dark rock canyon to drink from the lake before turning in and became a gray oval of mouse, its wings around it invisible, floating above reflected furrows of cloud-heavy yellow and the last blue of day skimming sips off the sun. Hello there. Let's see. And this other poem. So this is a story that my aunt told me once about my grandpa's childhood in a small farm in Tennessee before him and grandma got out of there through the military and came and lived outside Tooele. And my mom listens to my aunt's stories because she's her twin sister. And she's like, what, that's crazy. Those are not what he actually said. Those are insane. So hers is the inflated versions, mom's is sort of the more down-to-earth versions. I think both versions are important though. All right. So this is called Justification. 1 year in my grandfather's childhood, his family had nothing to plant in the spring and cultivate for the long hot summer months to prepare for the long cold winter ahead, except for a single cob of sweet corn. So they carefully removed every single kernel of sweet corn from the cob and, taking each moist yellow stone, pushed a divot with their thumbs into the black soil of the field, down a long line beneath the flat gray sky, and dropped every single kernel of sweet corn into its own divot and buried it. When they were done, they discovered that the rooster had come up behind them down the line and, with its sharp feet, had dug up and eaten every single kernel of sweet corn they had planted. So my grandfather's family caught the rooster, took a knife, cut a slit in its bulging, distended craw, carefully removed every single kernel of sweet corn it had eaten, and planted every single kernel of sweet corn again. Then they sewed the rooster back up.
Good evening. So, in keeping with the Valentine's Day theme, ripped off the title of a Greg Brown song I like. It's called Hey Baby Hey. Hey baby, hey. Let's get up. What do you say? I'd like to take a walk. I can't sleep and I've got something to say. Hey baby, what do you say? There's no moon out tonight, but we could walk by the light of the Milky Way. I know you feel it too. Everything is different, and it's all still changing. Now there are too many dimensions. What we see has new shape and no boundaries. What we know we don't understand, and what we understand has new meaning. Many things once dark are luminescent, and the stars shine with new colors as they tease out wondrous pictures in the void. The paths of the planets have skewed, and science cannot explain it. As astronomers gaze with wonder, their scopes bend, determined to see the old way. We need a new picture, not a photograph. That's way too much detail. We need the vision of an artist, black on white with a fine pencil. Negative space tells most of the story. Or maybe done with delicate shading and charcoal. Hell, I don't know. Maybe an etching, vision scraped through layers of color. Some going to the red. Maybe a picture of something old seen in a new way, or maybe something new seen at last. But there is something I do know for sure. If I were an artist, I'd try to capture that something. And if I could catch it, I would cast it in gold. Then I'd shine it every day so we could sleep in its glow every night. Your smile would keep me strong and your laughter would be our song. So let's get up now, take a walk. What do you say? We can take a walk into the Milky Way. Then we can just float on it and sail away. Hey baby, what do you say? Hey baby, hey baby, hey baby, hey.
Yeah.
Adrian, did you get rid of the box elder bug? Oh, okay, he's still here. I kind of feel like at some point, this box elder bug has a lot to say to us. And I think if we could just get him here. Box elder poem. Okay, next, readers. Teresa, Ann Schill, and Philip Brown.
There's no way I'm going to be able to follow the box elder bug. Where did it go, though?
It's on the front now.
All right, good. As long as I know. I just have a couple poems. This one is called Snow Prints. Prince with a T. I don't enunciate it. Print. Not like a Disney movie. I watch my stride shorten to walk alongside the prince left here and imagine we're friends walking together. My feet are bigger, hers better shod, and we smile at her little dog hopping the minuscule snowbank of each curb as we talk books and make plans for tea to warm us after so long out in the snow. Her mother will call and she will apologize, but I don't mind. Glad for someone to walk with, for some company in the fallen snow. And then I had to do some version of a love poem. So this is called Poo Matches. Thin, poo matches. Thin with purple, shiny heads, 22 a book, offset in rows, ready to be torn out by 2s and 3s, struck along the back and held for a moment, then blown or shaken out, and dropped into the bowl with a crisp hiss as smoke drifts into nothingness in our small bathroom. You bring home the blue books by the cupful from the bar, and they live in the bathroom, die by 2s and 3s to clear the air, without aerosols, candles, or plug-in scent diffusers, only thin, sweet smoke to cover human smells. One among many things, different before and better with you.
Hello. It's fitting, I guess, that we have a box elder bug to accompany us. I have a little poem that takes place in a flower garden. Aphid season peaked in early summer. The pea-green grains coated our rosebush stems in lavender blooms. Mom assured me that insects don't experience fear, then blasted the pests with the hose on its highest power. One year, Mom ordered ladybugs online. She called me to the front yard where she held a crinkling plastic bag of hungry beetles, stuffed so dense the black chitin caught the light like midnight waves sliced by the moon. She ripped the package at the top, flinging bugs to the dirt, and the bag erupted with the scuttling things, scrambling over her hands and down her arms and tumbling like old dimes down between our toes. I held out cupped hands, and Mom tipped the bag, sending a wave of ladies into my pink, pink palms. The leg of a ladybug ends in a hook, not unlike an eagle's talon. A blanket of tiny taloned feet plucked at my skin as the bugs ventured off the soft flesh edge and broke the seam of their spotted shell and rose like the solo soprano's preparatory breath. I was left with dry, curled corpses, black beads from a broken necklace. I let them tumble into a pile at the base of a nearby lavender bush. The still, still bodies almost look like rose petals.
So I have 3 poems that I'd like to read. This first one is about or inspired by the artwork by a couple who make art. They're known as Christo and Jean-Claude. They're contemporary artists, most famous for wrapping things. And by things, I mean sometimes whole buildings or bridges in fabric. I think their next project is actually wrapping the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. But it begins with an epigraph by them. It says, "We wish our work of art to be once in a lifetime and never again." Catalog. I find them everywhere. Not monumental pieces, islands surrounded with pink fabric, each a loud bloom, or veins of saffron flags winding between miles of frozen trees, but smaller ones. Moss-coated stones, gutters lined with scarves of water, a blue curtained window, roses bundled in burlap, frost on fallen leaves. I look closely, but I don't find any title cards, so I name them myself. Wrapped floor. Just before evening, the sun wraps the entire surface in light. Wrapped bed. Swathed in sheets, I realize I'm a part of the work, so I lie very still. And this morning, I find another, wrapped mirror. A shroud of condensation hides my reflection. I almost missed it. The work is already beginning to evaporate. This next one is very new. I've been working on it for a while and finished it with a few minor tweaks before driving over. And I guess this one is one that fits the Valentine theme in sort of a different way. It's called Neighbors. Our heads are houses, my husband's and mine. Neighbors when we lie down at night, each pillow a snow-filled yard. I look over to find him dreaming, memories on like evening news, easing the quiet inside his body. I wonder what he sees, a fragment from childhood or one with me. I can't tell from here. This is how we live in marriage. The architecture of our faces only hints at what we house within. The cluttered rooms, a few locked closets. Even if we touched walls, kissed, one windowsill against another, there would still be glass and brick between us. Sometimes I withdraw, wander my own heart's halls. What are you thinking about? He'll ask, meaning, come to the doorway, I'm here. Words travel like letters slightly torn in transit, one home to another. As neighbors, our intimacy bridges a thin distance, glimpses of each other, music through a window, 2 porch light rings overlapping in the dark. A distance, yes, but it's ours. And this last poem is another double exposure poem. I read one at the last time I was here. For those who weren't here, I'm interested very often by art, and I wanted to translate a visual form into a written form. And so the poem is two sides. You can read one, you can read the other, and then they blur together if you read across. So that's how I'll read it. This one is entitled Double Exposure, Leaving Madrid. And I should mention that it's going to describe a train station called Atocha that's in the middle of Madrid, and it made quite an impression when I saw it, and so that was kind of the inspiration for this. Double Exposure, Leaving Madrid. We wait at the kitchen table, together and apart. I look up to your dark eyes, searching. You've said your fear, and I've said mine, into the silence between us. Your face softens as you turn to the window, almost out of focus. My hand reaches for yours. Our fingers touch. We hold hands like that, our attempt to end before we have to leave. We breathe. We listen to rain as it begins to fall. As noon filters down in shafts through open skylights, the train station in Atocha feels cavernous, cathedral-like. A pigeon wings from one ledge to another, fluttering against the light, a feathered silhouette, like leaves stirred by the wind. All trains pass through this point, where several lines meet. So many journeys interweaving, the rush as it ebbs and flows in time. Departure, arrival, departure. An announcement is blurred by hurried footsteps, their echoes like thousands of heartbeats. We wait at the kitchen table as noon filters down in shafts, together and apart. I look up through open skylights to your dark eyes searching the train station in Atocha. You've said your fear feels cavernous, cathedral-like, and I've said mine. A pigeon wings into the silence between us, from one ledge to another. Your face softens, fluttering against the light as you turn to the window, a feathered silhouette, almost out of focus, like leaves stirred by the wind. My hand reaches for yours. All trains pass through this point. Our fingers touch where several lines meet. We hold hands like that, so many journeys interweaving our attempt to end. The rush as it ebbs and flows before we have to leave in time. Departure, arrival, departure. We breathe, we listen. An announcement is blurred to rain by hurried footsteps, their echoes as it begins to fall, like thousands of heartbeats. Thank you.
Okay, our last three are Ronald Jensen, Erica Snow, and Star Colebrook.
I give him a look at Gasco. Gasco is our dog. He gets happy to see us, but not with strangers. Go, my O's. I don't mind the phones. And you're the O's. That's how classic Candy Sun goes. That's how I feel about my wife. She's the O's, one of the phones of my life. She's there for me from day to day. She cheers me up when things are gay. She is my rock that I can turn to when I'm down and feeling blue. We all have trials, and in spite of those, I don't mind the thorns, and she needs my O's. So I call it Jeanette. You are a great part of the team at Helicon. You did your part along with the rest, and enjoyed going with you to Helicon West. While you were there, drink you down to. Now you are gone, and I miss you so. You work hard every day. You help the children grow. Thank you.
Erica,
Snow had to leave.
Erica left?
Yeah, she
Oh.
had to go.
Okay, Star, then it's you.
Me? I forgot to tell Charles to thank Weston for videoing.
Weston, thank you for videoing.
And for setting up. And when you get done tonight, you have to put your own chairs back.
And for setting up.
Oh,
Thanks, Charles.
And then when we're done, everybody put your chair away.
And thanks, Charles, for emceeing because you set us up so fucking well. And such great readings. Bob Fuller, I had a little note in my Helicon West archives, and it was from 2006, and it had your phone number. Is it still the same? I'll call you.
It's the same.
All right. Hey, baby. Oh, Nat. Oh, Nano. I love you so much. I have stolen your words. Nat. Out of sugar, the arriving bird, faster than me, starving, of no particular use. 2. Valentine love letters, because not many poets who live together last. 3. Too much. Take it. I adore shameless hearts, cherry, pear, all that shark, smidge of sticky, everything candy. 4. Like a love letter to the alien culture of Utah late in a long day, a little too familiar. 5. But the broken human, faith lost, forgets like a dead armadillo, like a powder moon overhead, shadow and haze. 6. In the bathtub, questioning her fire, too much, too stray, too salt. 7. Half a primal dehydration, crystalline collision. 8. Exhausted, obsessed, this constant changing. 9. Unconsoled, unformulated, tall and lean and open. 10. She writes, tied to the branches, gouged, lunging, not delicate. All this in a single day. Nano. Hey, jealousy. I'm laughing, I'm B-side, I'm waiting, the key, the beat, a dialing in, a reaching begin. Christ, living here in reveling geography, bald in a cloud of doubt, I learned impermanence. A whole new self, a neon flamingo shadow, dreaming a lightning patina ritual of passing trains, the history that can't catch up to me, the ruin of near and gone. I dream the ritual of city, assemblage of steel, sorrow of fracture of blood and soil, jealousy, waylaid, barely a drop left for you to hold my heart at your hopeless door, that darker world, a swallowed metaphor. I'm veering to silence, to dream, and to believe the rest to be true. Thank you.
I meant to say also, Sugar is a new nonprofit. I'm a fundraiser, I'm sorry. And we've agreed to be the fiscal sponsor of Helicon West. So if any of you come from that like Rockefeller money, or you're digging under your couch and you find a few more quarters, you can give it to STAR, we can process it, and it's totally tax deductible. And you support programs like this, anthologies like this, like work like the work Nate's doing, and you sleep a little better at night too.
Yeah. So I brought a couple of real poems up. So these poems, these two poems were from Shannon's workshop that she did here at right at the library event in January. And if you haven't been to Shannon's workshops, you need to go because she is so, Anne got a great poem out of it too, probably more than one, because she's so inspiring. And the next one is April, is that right? And is it going to be here? And what day?
April 4th, 12:30.
April 4th, 12:30. Is that a Saturday?
Yes.
Okay, so be here and we'll write together. So this one is called Weeding. By the way, thanks to Poetry at 3, my poetry group, who helped to revise these poems that were inspired by Shannon, which were already good, but they made them better. And this comes with an epigraph by Iris Nelson, who was also at Shannon's workshop and got a great poem out of it. She said, "Weeding is my meditation, my therapy." And I said, "For the light blue mat of star flowers, fragile seeming powder light, I pull with all my energy, I pull for them. I pull their tough entangled stems, their sticky hairs all meshed together, pulling them from mat on mat of partners, all in bloom, all blooming with these tender stars, cloud light and feather soft, stars that drop to earth as I pull, a patch of soil now seeded with what must come up again in season, so many of them like stars encrusting my home sky, out in farmland by the river where the Milky Way encrusts the already starful dark, no lights to blot their separate blooms, all falling, falling like these blue star flowers I hesitate to weed, these blooms we call weeds, thick as stars." And this is my last poem for tonight, A Kind of Love. "We were just curious," she said. Two kids at 15, tasting a kiss, the feel of lip on lip, a bit shy at first, then plump, the slick outer shape so rounded and firm. We were just curious why our shapes were so different down there, one firm like a pear's belled bottom, one harder and jutting, the point of a picked cucumber. We were just curious. Kissing the lips felt a jolt like hot peppers down to the base of our biggest wondering. Later, the wrapping came off and the new taste was already gone, gone before we had a chance to know its flavor. Even later, gave away the baby, what we created from curiosity.
All right, thanks everyone for a wonderful evening. What great words, what great poems, what great prose. That's it, let's wrap it up. Let's put all our chairs over to the side.